The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Good morning and welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, everyone. I'm Lindsay DeLucia. Today we're going to be talking with State Senator Tom Casperson, who just announced his candidacy for Congress for the 1st District. So welcome, Tom. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay.
Of course. So tell me a little bit. I know that Monday you announced you're running, and this was in Escanaba?
It was. I'm born and raised in Escanaba, and so we thought it appropriate to do a formal announcement in Escanaba and then traveled from there down below the bridge.
Absolutely, and a lot of people came out to that, and how was the turnout?
They did. We had a great turnout, a little bit unique. I kind of set the tone to get back to my roots, which was the logging industry, and I was a log hauler for 27 years, so my uncle allowed me to use one of his logging trucks loaded and drove it in for the announcement.
That's great. Yeah, tell me a little more about your history and your experience.
Yeah, I'm a third generation in the business. I followed my grandfather and my dad. They started the business back in 1957, so I did that myself for 27 years following my dad. And it was really through the timber industry and those type of things that led me to actually ultimately run for public office, having served on the board of directors of the Michigan Association of Timbermen. And a lot of issues, whether it be trucking or logging, natural resource related. And so that was really a driving force that led me down the path to run for public office.
Right, so tell me a little bit about that. What kinds of things you saw specifically that when you went in to run for Senate, those were your main goals for the area?
Yeah, I mean, we know that those issues, whether it be mining, logging, anything really to do with the natural resources in northern Michigan is vital. And it's part of our economy, in many cases, it's really a way of life. And what I found in my experience on the state level, and I see no difference in Washington, is that the government, the departments in many cases won't listen to the people. And they kind of dictate or set policies that are telling us how we're going to do things and how we're going to live our lives. And it was always frustrating. It was one of the things I worked on as a legislator in Lansing. I see it even more so now on the federal level, and that is they just don't listen to us. And they're kind of, the departments seem to want to run the policies or almost legislate from the departments. And I think that's totally inappropriate. And talking to people, that's what I keep hearing. They're very frustrated. They feel the government just won't listen to them.
And why do you think that is, or what do you maybe plan on doing about that?
Well, I think first of all, you have to convince enough of your colleagues what you're thinking is right, and you have to build a relationship with people when you're in public office. No one person can go just kick a door in and take names and then solve all the problems. It doesn't work that way. And I tried to do that. I take that approach when I ran for public office on the state level. I think the record would show we've had success doing that, and I see no difference going to Washington. You have to win enough of your colleagues over to convince them you're right about your issues for your district, and if you can get there, then you can have some success, and that would be the goal.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little more about your campaigning efforts for Senate. When was it that you first ran?
I ran in 2010. I ran in 2002 and got in 2003 for the House. Ran my 6 years. Term limited out in 2008 and then ran in 2010 for the Senate.
So tell me about campaigning for each of those different spots and different strategies you took on and what you think that will bring on for your candidacy here.
Yeah, I think working together was very important, and what I mean by that is I come from a district that the seat I hold today, I'm the first Republican to ever sit in it. So it wasn't like I could just go open doors and take names and say the Republicans are the only thing that have the answers or the only ones that are right. You can't talk in those terms. You have to talk to people. And what I tried to do is approach them, first of all, that I'm Tom Casperson, tell them what my background was and what I thought needed to be done to change things, and try to win them over. And I didn't get concerned about, are you a Republican, are you a Democrat, are you an independent? I just went to the people. And we have had a lot of success doing that, and I think really it's a better approach.
And in terms of talking to the people, what have you heard most from them? What do they want most that you're focusing on?
Well, they're frustrated with their elected officials, for sure. The term politician comes out and there's almost venom in it when they say it. That makes me feel bad because I didn't go into office to be that type of person. I never did. I don't think I am that type of person. But I'm concerned because people are losing hope. And they're losing total confidence in their government in general. And I think I'm not willing to give up. I think we have to stay engaged. I'm going to stay engaged. I'm going to try because I just think we have the best system in the world, and we shouldn't just stay home and say it's over. It's not. And so that to me is the biggest issue we're faced with right now. It's the public and their perception of what's going on. And a lot of it, they're right. And there needs to be some changes, and we need to give people hope again that the government will listen to them, and we're going to respond to the people and get away from this agenda-driven stuff.
And in terms of your candidacy now for Congress, what's your next step, really? Throughout this next year, what are you planning on?
It's going to be a lot of driving, a lot of traveling. It is one of the largest districts probably in the country as far as congressional districts. I know it's the largest this side of the Mississippi, but I'm somewhat used to that. My Senate district was the largest district in the state. A lot of traveling and getting around. You have to pick and choose where you're going for each event. So there's part of that, and that's what we'll do. But I plan on hitting the road. My family's with me. They're all on board. My wife's with me, rock solid. So they understand right now it's going to be traveling and a lot of time away.
Of course. All right, well, when we come back, we're going to be talking more about some things that are going on right now that you're going to be looking into fixing those issues, and also future goals for State Senator Casperson, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Insights into Northeast Michigan, everyone. I'm Lindsay DeLucia, and we are speaking with Senator Tom Casperson, who's here, and he just announced his candidacy for Congress in the 1st District here. So what I want to ask you is, I know that you have been in contact with current Congressman Dr. Dan Benishek, and I want to know what he's told you about this position.
Yeah, well, he certainly has shared with me it's a big district. He's certainly aware of that. We've talked a little bit about the Washington size and scope and trying to reach out and make some inroads in Washington. It can be difficult. I think Dan would agree that it's a relationship building thing. You can't just go in there and announce you've arrived and everybody better start listening.
Right.
So we've talked in those terms, but Dan and I have tried to work together on a lot of common issues that him and I have, and certainly natural resources was one of those issues that Dan and I have worked together on through our staffs and ourselves at different meetings. We've held joint hearings between Wisconsin and Michigan on natural resource issues related to the Forest Service. Dan's helped us with that and participated in that, as well as the congressional people from Wisconsin. And we've had some successes doing that, but some of the other things that Dan, that I would love to follow through with that he's done is the work he's done with the veterans. Just most recently, he had a veterans fair up in my Senate district, and I participated in it, and I was really impressed with the feedback I got from the veterans, because it's a unique thing that he put together, and what it really does is give the veterans FaceTime, real access to people, to ask questions about paperwork, just basic things that they need some help with. And the participation rate was huge. I mean, people were there all day long, coming in and out. People stuck around and talked. So I would love to keep working and maybe even explore how we could expand those type of things.
And of course, that was Dr. Benishek's, is still, even with retirement, his main goal. He's really interested in the veteran affairs. What would you say your main goal in your candidacy is?
I think it's natural resources, probably because of the connection to jobs, but that is the issue that has taught me that the government is not listening to the people. When we bring our issues forward, I mentioned serving on the board of directors of the Timbermen, I thought we would come forward and we'd negotiate, and we would, I think, come in good faith, only to find out that, a short time later they were coming back at us again, and almost felt like trying to stop us or put us right out of business almost, because they had somewhere else they wanted to go, meaning the government in this case. And so I think for me it is to try and be a voice for the people, to make the government listen. I've told people within government agencies, if you want to set agendas, then what you need to do is you need to put a yard sign out and go run for public office and get the support of the public, the people, because that's where the power is supposed to be. And if you can get elected, then you come down here and work through the legislative process, and you change directions that way. You don't do it through a rule, through a government agency. And people are frustrated with that, and I think sometimes people don't understand why the government is doing this to them, and they can't quite put their finger on it, and they don't know who quite to blame. And so I see a lot of that. I see too much of it, and it flows through the state, and it also is at the federal level as well.
And like you said, the 1st District is huge. I mean, it covers a vast area. What have you seen the issues in? There's got to be a ton within the big area that it covers. I mean, you're from Escanaba.
Right.
What are some main issues up there as well?
Well, I think the common issue that we're all faced with right now that's very current, and we really do need people to pay attention and make it and do it right, but our power issue, our energy issues are critical. The northern part of the state is the first to have gone through some of these EPA rules that have come down. We almost, in my district, we almost lost the Presque Isle Power Plant, which is the main source of power we have. And had that happened, our people throughout the whole northern part were looking at about a 70% increase in their rates to try and solve this problem. That was unacceptable. And so we did work through that. We worked with the administration, we worked with the mines up in the UP, we worked with Wisconsin Electric to come up with a solution, and it's somewhat of a short term, but it is a new power plant that's smaller in scale, but at least solves that immediate problem. But we have a bigger problem, and that's connectivity. And one of the things I've asked for is a Michigan-based solution versus, in our case, a Wisconsin solution. I have nothing against Wisconsin, but I'm much more comfortable if we're connected to Lower Michigan, and then only to find out that Northern Michigan really has the same problem. They're kind of on the end of the cord. A lot of the power gets generated in Southern Michigan and it gets shipped up to Northern Michigan, much like we have with Wisconsin shipping energy into the Upper Peninsula. We need connectivity. We've got legislation to try and at least put together the plan to see if it's feasible to do it. I support that wholeheartedly. I think there's widespread support throughout Northern Michigan to do that. We're gaining steam, I believe, in support in Lower Michigan, but it will be good for all of us if we can connect the two peninsulas and become a one-state solution in our energy issues.
And that is a large issue right now, as you said. And I know that there are bills right now in Congress being looked at about it. Do you think that this is something that we're going to be seeing as probably the main issue in the state? And if so, when will we see change about it?
We're hoping to see some of it start already this year.
Okay.
If we can get some of it through. I've got two pieces of legislation. One would be the connectivity part of it, to put a group together to come up with, is it feasible or not? And if we can get the green light that it is doable and it's a statewide solution, the costs would be spread across the state, not just to one little region. If that comes together, then we will see that move forward. And the other part of it would be the short term would be the power plant part of it. I've got a bill that puts that in place, and it's really a UP isolated issue, and that is that We Energy is going to be a part of this. But some of the problems we faced is we've got two public service commissions we always have to go through. We go through Wisconsin's public service and Michigan's. My legislation would require that We Energy set up shop in Michigan for this particular power plant, so that it's a Michigan-based company. And so we only deal with the Michigan Public Service Commission on those, the main issues that we're faced with. We have an agreement on that. I suspect that'll get done before the end of the year.
And that is also something I wanted to ask you. Do you see maybe misconceptions between the Upper and Lower Peninsula that, you know, some people in the Upper Peninsula don't know is going on down here, or vice versa? Sure,
I think there's some of we're not paying attention to really what the needs are. But what I'm finding, as you do pay attention, is there's a lot of commonality, and power is one of them. And we see right now a big solution that with this connectivity, because short term, you've got Wolverine that's looking at a very large plant that they're putting in place. It's my understanding that plant is designed for expansion if needed. That seems like a wonderful opportunity for all of us because they can help set a stable source of energy for us, and we're doing it in Michigan and through Michigan. But until we get that connectivity, that power plant is going to help Northern Lower, but it really won't do much for the Upper Peninsula. We'd like to see that connection so that we are working together as one state.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back, so stay tuned for more of that. Welcome back to Insights into Northeast Michigan, everyone. We are here with Senator Tom Casperson, who is running for Congress here in the 1st District. So, Tom, we spoke briefly about, you know, your experience, and now we're talking more about connecting the two peninsulas to become more of one state in solving these issues. So what I want to hear from you also, I know you were here recently at Cabin Creek Coffee here in Alpena, and you got the chance to speak with a bunch of people from here in the Alpena community. So tell me what you've heard from them and what you think a main issue here in our community is.
Well, some of the things that I heard, we talked about earlier with the government, and they're not listening, and they feel, I sense hopelessness. You know, that it's just over, it's going to be the way it is, there's no changes coming. and again, I disagree with that. I mean, I wouldn't be running if I didn't, but the specific things, healthcare was an issue that was brought up, the hospitals and the survival of our hospitals, especially in rural Michigan, that we can keep those going. So those are type of issues. People are very concerned about Obamacare and where that's taken us so far. So those are kind of issues that they're concerned about, but don't quite understand what's going to be the end result, because you still have those that, like myself, that think that putting national health care together the way they did in Washington was inappropriate. And we've been stuck with that in the state level. And there was several opportunities where we thought it might go away, and we didn't get it done. You know, the presidency stayed the way it did. The Senate did change eventually, but not enough. So we're, at this point, Obamacare is still part of who we are and where we're going. So we have to deal with all those issues. I think people still believe and hope that it will change, and that part of what came out of Washington will be different and change. And I would say that for us that are running and other people, if we're going to eliminate Obamacare, and I would vote to do that, we have to have some solutions and some answers, not just say get rid of it and then life's going to be great again, because it's not. Healthcare has been a big problem, and our hospitals are the ones that are probably seeing the impact of all that confusion and where we're going. So that was a concern this morning. We want to see our hospitals stay. I've had some hospitals in my district, my Senate district, that are really, no pun intended, but on life support. I mean, they're really struggling, and they're in a rural part of my district, and it's people, if they can't have a hospital, it'll be very difficult to expand and grow their community. So those are issues we're going to have to be faced with and deal with.
And I understand you also heard a little bit about fishing over here from the community?
We did. We actually got a little bit of good news,
Yeah.
that over here the fishing seems to be a little bit better. I remember working on some fishing issues early on in the House, in the state level, with the cormorant, the problems we had with the cormorant. So it was good to hear that there's been some improvement, at least, that people are feeling a little bit more hope on the fishing side of things. From where I come from, it's still been a struggle. Our fisheries has been hurting, and we'd like to see some things happen to shore that up. But that's all related to the natural resource stuff. And in this particular case, I think the conversation, at least that we had, was connected to the cormorant, and many people probably have heard that term or heard about the bird and its effect on our fisheries. And it's been around for a long time now. But you know, there's a prime example of where it seemed like a bird was taking priority over our very way of life, and to try and come up with a way to manage the bird, which meant some birds would have to go. There's too many in one spot, was really difficult, and the department seemed to side with the bird versus the families, and I just think that's inappropriate. And we have made gains on that, but it has been a real struggle.
And so now, going into your candidacy, if you do make it into office, where do you see maybe these next few years going?
Well, I think it's a transitional period, because you're going to be seeing the change in the White House. That certainly will have an impact depending on which way it goes. And hopefully that on the Republican side we maintain majorities, and really hoping that we can get a Republican president and see if we can start shifting things around. You know, a good example of that is we've seen some changes in multiple states where that has happened. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but if you take a look at some of the states where the Republicans did take over, there's been some big improvement and some turnarounds. Michigan would be a prime example of going into office with over 11% unemployment, as an example. I was there under the last administration, and we just kind of plugged along and kept battling back and forth, and really no big improvements. And in 5 years now, we're down to one of the lowest unemployment rates we've seen in a long, long time. It's a long way to go, but the course has changed. The direction has changed. There's been more hope in Michigan. Michigan, really business-wise, was almost a laughingstock. I mean, people thought, why would I come to Michigan? We're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing people very interested in coming to Michigan. Pure Michigan has made a huge change in how people perceive the state. So I would like to go to Washington with the same hope that we could get a chance to maybe try and change that course in that direction, and realizing we're really dealing with a large ship. It's not a speedboat. It's not going to be able to be turned overnight, but we got to get the course going a different way.
And in terms of traveling to different places in the district, when that time comes, how do you think you'll handle that, and making your way around from Washington to, you know, the UP and down here?
Yeah, I don't think I'd change it much different than I've been doing. It's a matter of strategically planning your trips, and Where I live in Escanaba, my district's so big, then I'm only home on the weekends. So what I've tried to do is spend part of my time on the west end, and then next week it's to the east end, and this wouldn't be any different. I'd have to pick and choose where I can be for a particular time and spend time in that region. You also have to have good staff, and I've been blessed with great staff. And I've learned that too, that this is not a one-person deal. You have to have good people around you. So that would be my goal, is to make sure I have good people around me.
Yes, and if people want to learn more about your candidacy, your platforms, what should they do?
They can get a hold of us at, and I'm new at this, so I probably won't get it right. I should be careful because I'm not quite sure what it's all set up, because we just set it up this week, but I don't know for sure. I don't know the...
We'll look up online, and I'm sure people will be searching your name.
And I'll get that better. I'll get a card and make sure we got it going. But this is fairly new for me, so I don't want to give out the wrong information and send them where they won't get a hold of me. But.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for being here. We appreciate your time, and safe travels while you're around here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And tune in to Insights into Northeast Michigan next week, where we will be talking more about some local issues in our community. Thanks so much for watching.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.
The furniture and set design for this episode of Insights is provided by Young Appliance Art Van Furniture on US 23 South, Alpena.